Hey mamas, welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Small Biz Mama. I am here with my husband, Jeffery Ingram. And today we're going to talk about parenting and how we parent together. I think Eric's finally asleep. Yeah. So you may not know this, but we had a podcast together called Small Biz Life, and you can go to smallbizlife.com and check all that out, or wherever you listen to podcasts. But we stopped doing that show together because it was just too hard for us to schedule as Eric got older. Mm-hmm. So, which was really sad.
Mm-hmm. We loved it.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. We did like 160 something episodes, I think.
I don't know. It was over 100.
It was a lot.
Well over 100. I think at least 150. So.
Yeah. So, really, really good stuff. So you can go back and you can listen to that and check it out. And a lot of it's like timeless stuff. Mm-hmm. That's still really relevant.
Like my hair.
Like your hair. Yeah. Okay. So we wanted to talk a little bit about parenting and how we parent together in the midst of businesses and life and COVID and all the things. Yeah. So why don't you talk a little bit about kind of what our strategy was for the schedule, like even when Eric was really small.
Well, it was kind of taking advantage of when we could do what, and so it's funny because if you listen to our business episodes, you'll find out Kristen works really well in the morning, which is true when she wakes up when she's supposed to, and it can start the rhythm. The problem is if she has to wake up 2 hours early, her body will reject it.
Yeah.
She was a great teenager, I'm sure.
Yeah.
She needs her sleep. And she needs to wake up about the same time every day.
Yeah. And
I was a soldier, for those of you who don't know. Can wake up and I will. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I will wake up and my brain will force me to explore and do it. So essentially we had the was it 2:30 or 3:30 cutoff?
Yeah.
Because Kristen was more of a night owl, and I was waking up in the mornings because I have this little thing making sound next door all the time. And so I would be waking up, there was a scratching somewhere, and wait, that was me scratching myself in my sleep. But and so I think it was 2:30. It was before 2:30. Kristen was still winding down and trying to fall asleep. And then after
this is Eric. This is how we took care of Eric at night.
Yeah.
Before he was sleeping through the night, which we actually got fairly lucky.
No, you got fairly lucky because he woke up at 3 a.m. every day.
Yeah.
Well, it's 2:31, honey. And there goes the baby. Good boy, mommy's little boy.
He was really good about that. He really was. It was amazing.
And she woke up too, but she could fall back to sleep. Where it's me with where I am in life, and I have chronic pain. I'm a chronic pain as well. Essentially, when I wake up after a certain time, I really struggle to go back to sleep anyway. So it made sense, even though it's low, not when it's family or friends crying out for help.
But yeah, so if you think about it, so Eric at the end of December, right, and being a tax accountant, we were like going like right into tax season with the newborn, and we were both working from home, and so we had to figure out a way to make this work instantly, right? Like there was no room for error. It was like, like a client called me while I was in the hospital, like right after I gave birth. And so we had to figure out like, how are we going to make this whole thing work with a newborn? And I mean, luckily like newborns sleep a lot, but they don't necessarily sleep a lot at night
or in a row.
Yeah. So one thing that we did that was really helpful is we read a book called Baby Wise. We'll put a link in the show notes, but essentially it was getting Eric and us on a schedule. And it helped us so much because we knew that as we were getting him on the schedule, it freed us up to get work done.
Yeah.
And we were so blessed that Eric was a really, really good baby.
Yes.
And so
he was such a good kid.
And so But like we knew, like, okay, you know, he's gonna nap for 2 hours, and then he's gonna wake up and feed, and then, you know, we're gonna hold him and we're gonna play with him, and then he's gonna go back to sleep. Like, it was great. But it teaches you this was sleep, eat, sleep, play, like, cycle.
Yep.
And we would just cycle through that like all day, and it was great, and he did awesome. So that was really critical to us being able to get stuff done when Eric was really little.
Yeah.
All bets went off when he started walking, though.
Yeah, when he hit 1, he's such a smart boy. Yeah, I mean, and every parent goes through this at some time or whatever. For us, it was not even bad when he was 1. He was mobile and experimenting, and then 2s and 3s, he starts to have his own opinion. Oh God!
And again, during tax season.
Have his own opinion during a tax season, you know. And so, you know, it's a, you know, realization. I think part of our thing is we realize, and the periods we're hoping will stretch out, and they do, but there's always going to be changes. And one of the things, I think it might have been the Baby Wise book, is like you have to be cognizant that it's always changing, you know, and those little charts that you get, those little averages, those are all lies. Even though they're on average true, they're always lies. You know, all kids develop differently, you know, and it's really frustrating for the questioner who just, you know, give me the brass tacks on how this works. And everyone, you know, who works with kids are like, well, you can't really look at it that way, and it's hard to get answers. And for the obliger who just wants to fix problems, just tell me how to fix it, and no one can tell you either one of those two things.
So I think one thing that was really hard for you was that you still wanted to try to fit all the work you were doing into the time you had, even though Eric was only taking 1 nap. And I
during
remember
tax season, that's really impossible because Kristen has to have more desk time. She just has to. And when you can't and we had some babysitting help at that point, which helped a lot. We miss you, Barbara. But you know, you need help. To get any work done, but especially if you're the on-call parent, you know, and that's the big thing when you have the business too. You have to have, even if it's not a business together, you have to have, you're on call now, I'm on call then. And on call is not a great thing to be because you're always going to get interrupted, but you don't have to sit there and get into fights over whose turn is it. Well, it's from this time to this time, it's your turn.
Right. And that's one thing, you know, when we kind of talked about in the last episode that, you know, I tend to work in the mornings and Jeff works in the afternoon. So the way that it typically works outside of tax season is, you know, if Eric naps, then I can work a little bit more in the afternoon. But if he doesn't nap, I'm getting up with Eric. Right. And so, but during tax season, that kind of flips. And so, you know, there are times that, you know, Jeff won't get into the office in a day. And I know that it frustrates you, but I think you become much better, cause like I remember like you used to get, and I like, I didn't get anything done this morning. I'm like, you're watching the kid. Like, you know, that's not, it's really, and like Eric's one of those kids that like, he will not let you be on the computer if you're supposed to smash it.
And the problem is too, is that we're like, well, we don't want too much screen time and we don't want this or that.
Right.
And even with that, he's I can't think of the word. It's late in my brain time.
It is. It's like 9 o'clock.
He's a very outgoing child.
He's an extrovert.
Extrovert, thank you. And so he needs.
I don't know where he gets that from.
I don't know. But he's very extroverted and he needs interaction with people. And he demands interaction with people. And when you're 3 and you demand interaction, you know, you will keep doing bad things to get the attention. That's the only way you get it.
Yeah.
And there's always a need with even introverted kids with their parents on that anyway. So I don't think you get lucky if your kid's introvert. And maybe it's not even any worse. I don't know, but I just have a feeling our kid is better at it.
And, you know, and I think one thing that we tried to do when Eric was really, really young, is that, you know, there a lot of times, especially because remember, he's born during tax season. that he had to entertain himself.
Yeah.
And so, he always had an area where he was in our office with us, but he was either in the pack and play, or he had like a bigger play area, and he would play on his own, and we always encourage that. But he was always with us.
Yeah.
And so I think for him, that helped him develop some independence really, really young, which allowed us to get more done.
And even now, it's like the technique, if you're having a good day, is you get him started. Once he gets started and is going in an activity, he can sometimes go up to an hour and be focused, but you have to get him started. And if you go away a second early, when he's 3, he will come after you. Or if it's a bad day, if he doesn't feel good and he needs more mommy or daddy time, it's going to happen. And trust me, he knows whose office time it is. That's the person whose time he needs. They're smart, and the thing is that they're doing what they need to do. They need to learn from you, so they want to be with you. And when you're out there, they're trying to pull you back to them, and they're very effective at it.
And so some things, Jeff just talked about, if you get him started on an activity, some activities for Eric at his age, right? And you got to kind of figure out like what your kid's thing is. Eric will play with his trains for a long time. He'll play with his trucks for a long time. He's at the age, like he keeps kind of going in and out of the cycle that he likes to sort things. So we have
and recycling trucks.
Yes. So we have he likes to sort pom-poms into little cups. We got him and we'll link these in the show notes, but these cool buttons, and they come in different colors and different shapes. And so some days he'll sort them by shape, some day he'll sort them by color.
And if you do it wrong, he'll tell you, no, daddy.
But like so he'll do that. If you have a little bit more tolerance for mess, like shaving cream on a tray with like some little spoons and measuring cups, Jeff will not do that. Jeff does not do the messy activities. Getting, putting some water in the sink and letting your kids like wash their trucks or their Matchbox cars.
You get to get back.
Play sand, like that kinetic sand that like sticks. He likes that. I know. Like that. Jeff doesn't like that stuff. It's too messy. Play-Doh is very effective. Watercolor paints. Eric really likes to watercolor paint, and that's not super messy. There's lots of, it just depends on your mess tolerance, and I think as kids get, as they get a little bit older, right, then those needs kind of change. But there's so many activities out there for kids. Like if you just Google or Pinterest or whatever, you can find lots and lots of stuff.
But I think the biggest thing though is the realization that when you're doing something with him, you have to be fully present. And he knows when you're not being fully present, and he's very vocal. And some kids might not be vocal, but trust me, they absorb all of the information. They will do things. Typically most bad behavior is just essentially trying to get your attention. If the only way I can get your attention right now is to jump up and down, that's what I'm going to do. And then plus you get a kid that age too, and they get tired and they go nuts because they don't want to fall asleep. At least our kid, that's his thing, is he goes crazy when he does not want to go to sleep. So.
Oh yeah, no, he totally does. And a book that really helped, and we'll link this in the show notes too, was No Bad Kids, by, I think it's Janet Lansbury. That book, first of all, there's lots of great techniques for working with your kids. But also like Jeff said, that the understanding that really little kids, they're not trying to be bad. They're not trying to piss you off.
They're really trying to learn.
And they know, like, for example, like when you get mad at your kids, they instantly get your attention, right? I mean, that's the way it is, right? We redirect our attention to them. We give all of our attention. So kids know, like, hey, if I do this, if I throw something on the floor, I'm going to get mom's attention and that's what I want. And it's not that they're trying to be bad. They know that you will react to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They know that that's the way to get your attention. So if you're there on your phone and you're ignoring everything the kid does, the kid knows that if he does, one of these things and they don't even know if it's good or bad, really. They just know this is how I can get mom's attention.
Yeah. And also keep in mind too, ultimately, when you talk to your spouse, if your husband was to pick up his phone, like, oh dear, let me tell you about the garbage, and he starts doing this, you're probably going to be upset. Because when you're talking to someone, you want their attention. And sometimes you learn that, oh, not right now. And kids don't know that, and so it's all learning. And like I said, a lot of times I say, even when they're dropping things on the floor, they're trying to learn how this thing will fall at this moment in time. And they might have to do that 1,000 times. Yeah. So if you want to drop that thing, try and get something that they can drop. Because they will, and that they want to do that activity.
Yeah.
And so if you can get them started doing something similar, sometimes it's just the actual activity they're trying to absorb, the absorbent mind.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of right now.
Yeah.
And they'll go through these different phases. And if you focus it and get them started and let them play a little bit, let them make a mess a little bit, or work with someone who will do that. It'll ultimately help them become more independent, and past 3, we have no clue.
Yeah.
We're only here,
That's right. We are where we are.
But we are where we are.
But yeah, no, I think that's, I think from Montessori, I think we learned, and that's the thing. It's like, we read a lot, like we study a lot, like, we love to learn new things. And so we've adopted a lot from Montessori, but we've also like kind of, let a lot, like Eric watches TV. Okay.
We talk about make-believe things.
So that's why I really love, I love Aubrey Hargis, because I think she's realistic Montessori. Yeah. She's especially like, we love all these Montessori principles. However, it's COVID in the 21st century and my kid's going to have to watch some TV sometimes. But knowing that there are certain phases that your kid goes through, like for example, like Eric with sorting, if he's in a mindset that he needs to sort, he's going to sort whatever he can find. And so if I don't give him something to sort, you're going to find the weirdest stuff around the house.
Or it'd be funny for a while, because he also loves garbage trucks. He would get a whole bunch of garbage containers from his garbage trucks, and he'll start putting stuff in there to sort them. If you take stuff away from him, he will then tear up books to start putting stuff into his thing, so he can keep digging. Because
he will go through phases where he needs to dump things. And so for a long time, that was filling, like putting random stuff in those containers so that he could dump them into his truck and then dump his truck and do it again. And so when he goes through those phases, it's like, okay, we need to give him stuff to pour. You need to give him stuff to dump into. And so that was, that would be a really good opportunity to give him like a bowl of water and some measuring cups and just let him pour.
And part of it is, that's how he learns volume. That's how he learns about how much goes into a cup, is by pouring it. You just, it's natural because you've done it so many times. But at that age, they're learning that if I dump this much water, it goes in. If I keep dumping, oh, well, look, mommy, it's everywhere. Isn't this awesome? I learned this, mommy. It's everywhere.
Yeah. But that's the thing is, so, one of the things I think that's really critically important when you have little kids is observe what they're doing. And if you don't like what they're doing with what they're doing it with, then say, okay, what is my child trying to accomplish? Like, I remember like Eric went through this whole thing where he's pushing everything around the house. And we found out that that's actually like a developmental thing, that kids need to push things. They need to transport things. And so what we started to do is we would let Eric push like the laundry baskets around the house. And that like instantly, like all these behavioral issues that we were having with Eric, like are gone.
Yeah. And a lot of times
you just needed to push stuff around the house.
This is the frustrating thing. And it does seem like you have a little bit longer periods of time as you start to hit the 3s. You think you come up with the solution that solves the thing and like that's taken care of. And
Not always.
from like year 1 to year 2, maybe 2 weeks if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But then it's like trying to figure out what's the next thing, what's the next thing.
Yeah. But that's why, like, I think if you're constantly in the mode that you're observing,
which is the good thing you learn from Montessori too, is your job is to observe.
Yep, absolutely. So, we're not parenting experts by any stretch of the imagination.
We're not the baby whisperer.
But the thing that we do is, like, we experiment, right? And we observe, and we just try to see what's going on with our son. But then the other thing is that, again, it's that whole team mentality, right? That it's us versus him, and sometimes it takes both of us,
and we still lose.
Yeah, and we still lose sometimes. And a lot of times, one thing I think that we're really good at is, it's like wrestling, we tag out. So it's like, okay, I have reached my limit, and you see that I've reached my limit. So now you're going to go in. And especially, like, sometimes at bedtime, that's really helpful.
It's funny too, because it's like we have the baby monitor stuff, and you don't really need it in the house. But like, we'll have one downstairs, and you can just hear people talking. And so when you hear it, the voices get more like, really, it's time to lay down in bed. They're like, okay, I'm just go upstairs, and mommy can walk away for a little while, and I can sit there. And if it's a really bad night, sometimes she'll have to come back in. But you can kind of hear what's going on. And then it's good too, because you can observe more in a different way. Like, well, I don't know what he was doing, but this is what I kept hearing you say, honey. And sometimes you in the discussions together, you can figure out, oh my goodness, it's so simple with just this one thing that he needs help on. And when you're under fire, God bless you, single parents. I don't know how you do it, or if you're, a mom or a dad who does it all in your house, God bless you. I don't know how you do it. But thank you for doing it though.
Yes. Yeah. So I hope that you found this episode helpful. I hope you found this whole series helpful. If you didn't listen to the last 2 episodes, really go back and listen to those. Like I said, we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
That's why Baby Whisperer, we hired her to work for us.
We are probably, our kid is probably very damaged.
They are always damaged.
Yeah. And we're all going to damage our children in some way, shape, or form. But I think the thing is I think in everything that we do, we try to be intentional. We try to course correct when things aren't going well. And at the end of the day, we always go back to, we are a team.
And sometimes you have to question yourself to go, is me just being upset over and over and over again making anything different? Probably not. And so you have to be able to sit there and go, maybe I need to change something that I'm doing, try a different tactic. And it's tough. It's tough when you're in that moment. But sometimes if you can at least go back over in your own head, or hopefully you have a spouse you can work with it, or some loved one that you can work on with it, to come up with better ways to do it. And then you'll figure it out, and you'll feel like you're a superstar for a day or two until they passed you again. And it's never ending.
That's right. But I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please share this. Share it with somebody that you know. And if you haven't reviewed the show, please do so. Because every time one of our listeners reviews the show, it gives us really good juju with all the channels that we're on, and helps more people find us. So again, we want to thank you so much. Keep submitting your questions. Let us know how we can help you in your life, your business, and with your parenting. You can go to askkristen.net, and that's Kristen with 2 I's. Askkristen.net, and you can fill out the form and help us come up with more great content for you.
And you can save enough time and make enough money to go to Bob Evans.
Take care. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to Small Biz Mama with Kristen Ingram. If you'd like to learn how to create more margin in your life, please visit us at smallbizmama.com. That's smallbizmama.com.